We're going to start out in Mexico. We're going to do a little magical realism stuff. We're going to have a little bit of Chile, a little bit of Israel. We will end here in the Pacific Northwest because we just can't get away from the cold and the gray and the horrifying autumn that is in the Pacific Northwest that then like just blazes into color. So for the first piece I'm going to read, I want to make sure that everyone knows the Katrina, the figure of a dead skeletal woman that now has really become an icon for Day of the Dead or Dia de los Muertos in Mexico. And she began as a political cartoon, caricature, where the Mexican women in the early 1900s were trying to imitate European women with all their finery and jewelry and dresses. And he was basically saying, you know what, babes, you're all going to die and you're all going to look like a skeleton. And so it has now become the Katrina. So I'm beginning with this piece called Death and the Katrina, Dia de los Muertos. In the wee hours of the morning, Katrina let death walk her home. She liked his look, his aloofness, the way she thought she saw pain where others saw only greed. Back when she was alive, she felt like a caricature of what others expected. Now she knew exactly what she was doing. After 100 years mingling with the living and the ones she lost, some too young to have touched bare feet to pink cantera stone. Death had more time to perfect his approach, to select and seduce each night's companion, slow his long legs to match her pace, steadily ascend steep stone alleys, steps of the casita to the terrace above, until he was standing at her side. Gazing together toward the moonlit town, he would take her in his arms, feel her relinquish her fear, then draw out her last breath. She used to think the touch of death would cut to the quick, enter and consume, reverberate like a second heart chamber, extinguish her breath, thought, wish, memory, leave only clay dust. She was wrong. Death put his phone and socks in his cowboy boots. His skin unbearably young and velvety, slept soundlessly next to his smudged, tossed, slapped Katrina, who had not slept for over a century. In the morning, her blue cotton sheets were streaked black, a dusky handprint here, fingerprint there, so too her ankles, legs, arms, neck, cheeks. Everywhere death touched left a stain that resisted water and soap, bruises black, then blue. He did not stay for Café de Olla. She imagined him returning to the street, striking a tableau, passers-by amused or taunted, others walking right past, eyes averted. She was surprised to miss his brooding presence. Only to his Katrina, a kindred spirit of sorts, did he reveal the young boy who watched his mother build the ofrenda every year for his little brother, taken before he was 2. A gorgeous overflow of sweet pan de muerto, juice, candles, tiny soft knit socks, heaps and heaps of golden and purple cempasúchil, Aztec marigolds, flowers of death. Oh, to be the child in the shadow of a dead baby, to be held by a mother with a grief-filled heart, helpless to bring either back to life, pledging to be enough for 2 sons, understanding that altars, cemetery picnics, and a living next child could not heal her pain. This is the way we create death, who forever hides his soft side, feels misunderstood and ignored, feared and jeered, has never wanted to be known as grim or as reaper, but as a visual artist, changing the landscape one person at a time. And isn't it just like a woman, especially one who is bone thin and hollow-eyed, to awaken from forgotten hungers, romanticize, search him out in his favorite haunts, don her finest clothes and a jaunty hat, tuck a marigold in her hair, maybe even overdo her makeup a bit, accentuate the feminine wiles, knowing her beauty and elegance will fade by morning. She'll do anything for another moment to feel slightly less dead. Katrina wanders every twisted callejon, every shadowed tunnel, but he is not to be found. Unused to kindling a spark of life, Death left town for Pátzcuaro, home of his ancestors, his baby brother's altar, drawn by the dream of re-inking himself, seeking out those not yet doomed to die to accompany to the other side. Thank you. Okay. So that one's fun to read because it's just longer, and so, okay. This is called Why Not? Why not believe the mouse fell in love with him? Despite Arter's lure, he banished her for making too much noise, gnawing the bookcases. The mouse found its way back to the soft-haired, soft-souled man who dances in a bare rental, sings credence. Once again, the little love-drunk mouse scuttled and nibbled, a scratchy sound that kept the writer awake, made him fear for his books. Once again, he released her, this time across town at the feet of the bronze Quixote. She hasn't returned, his eyes whisper in tender lament. Why not give up the doomed, frantic quest? Let go the urge to slate insatiable craving, grabbing and clawing, chawing old pages of unread books, scurrying in circles, keeping the whole damn house up with our tedious search, crumbs undigested, bellies full of deception, despair, exile. Why not savor what is here? Welcome what comes to meet us, follow the unknown path, wander where we are led, and be found over and over again. Mouse and lover, mother and child, word and page. This begins with a quote by the architect named Rem Koolhaas, and he says, "Yay, another feature game." So Rem Koolhaas has this quote, "A building has at least two lives, the one imagined by its maker and the life it lives afterward, and they are never the same." At least two lives. Some never knew of the secret stair, smooth, cool caracol of white cantera, winding out of sight, complicit in the house built in another era for people who carried other burdens in and out the front door, supplies and groceries through the back, who lived with contradictions and lies that spilled from cupboards, overflowed sinks, loves steamed and ironed, folded and stored for the season, beds warmed with heated bricks, coal fire soot staining the tapestries hung to insulate the walls, muffle the ricochet of voices off hard surfaces. A thing of the past, those bricks, replaced by a hot water bottle, and later heat from the spouse no longer expected to sleep down the hall. This body, pulled from another, no longer matches anyone's imagination. The everyday, every house on the block, your town and mine, every person ever bornness strips miracle from the mundane. I was formed without my asking, cared for until bones and sinews, organs and limbs, brain and mind could sustain me outside the warm lean-to that was my mother's body. I watched 3 brown-black foals, coats shiny and slick, 12 knobby legs embedded in those of the mares who were closing in slowly so as not to disrupt the suckling. I crept closer, captivated by pure marvel on that hilltop. A whinny call and response arose, warning of the one uninvited to the fold. The sires advanced, shoulders shuddering the new perimeter, eyes alert, mirroring back the image of one who'd ventured too far from her herd. There, on the Cerro de la Crucita, life's continuous rebirth, its spiral trail formed by footfall, innumerable predecessors. I descended the living side of the Cantera Kory, made my way back to the house built for someone else. I will never know what maker would put a stair just here, nor how to count a mountain's lives. Okay. This next poem is just going to have a whiff of Chile, which I have not been to visit, but it starts with a quote from Pablo Neruda, his poem called El Canto, which means the song, his book Las Manos del Día, The Hands of Day. One must scare the boxes of language, startling the vowels into flight as if they were gulls. The song. One must scare the boxes of nostalgia, shake loose the dust of memory, the stale false sense of things happening for a reason, scatter storylines that make today seem inevitable, tap the sides of the photo frames, caress the faces that stare back, two-dimensional images robbing the essential third, the way cheekbones round and a chin indents, the fluttery feel of fingers exploring the space a body replaces, a cascade of my hair curling over your shoulder, the way your lips became a country beckoning me across the border. Okay. Ready to come back to the Pacific Northwest? Okay. Still Life, Smith Cove. Smith Cove is in Magnolia. It's near where the marina is. Like the crone observing from her crooked neck perch, bones and sinews exposed as winter's denuded branches, the blue heron rests on the venerable maple's leafless limb, its S-curved neck raising and turning languidly. Time here, unmeasured. An improbable assemblage, Alaskan factory ships, purse seiners, trawlers at rest. Gulls dive, starlings murmurate with sudden reversals, duck pairs glide, Puget Sound waves slap the black rock wall. The half-mile-long piers host local joggers, ambling tourists, and the just-returned traveler. The city skyline stacks, soft gray. Brown dogs race across manicured greens. Mount Rainier's glacial snow shimmers. The heron, the crone, take it all in. They see everything except what is directly beneath. The root system loosening its grip, the soil slipping through withering membranes, the way this magnificent maple will be ripped from the earth in the coming windstorm, will crack then crash, its wizened body laid to rest, the teeming life it once nourished sent shocked and scampering, slithering, burrowing, digging to new shelter. The new vista will break open, less one big leaf maple, one blue heron, one old woman. Two more, short. As the crow. I confess, I like the flashing red lights along the slim, tall necks of the communication towers in the dark morning sky, guiding those awake all night to deposit their weary loads safely, 14.4 miles south-southeast as the pilot flies. I confess, I am a meandering bird, unlikely to take the direct path. Moment catcher, geocacher, part wanderer, part rebel, I fly in spirograph, distracted by changing light, a pocket view of Mount Rainier, the formation of geese overhead morphing from a V to a wishbone, the first bird song to join the early morning chorus of train and car. I loop and explore, the ever-lengthening arc expanding past the page at times. So far, I always return to the nest. And I will end with this. It is called Morning Prayer. Nib meets paper in shadow. Illegible these dreams, indecipherable this code. Each day I return to you, O lexicon. I share my morning coffee with you, blank page. I glove my hands, knit cap my head, blanket my torso, make pilgrimage to the sacred site where the three muses mantled as Douglas fir once appeared, where God revealed itself at the feeder, iridescent and hovering, accepted my sugar water offering. I like my gods, small and flitting, magenta-throated, or large and looming, patient and wise, grounded and uninvolved with my mundanity. Gods who don't step foot in the temples we build, wait for us outside. Thank you.
So I grew up in a small Icelandic community in Ballard. I bet you probably didn't even know there was a small Icelandic community in Ballard. That's how small it was. Okay, so all this year I've been a jack straw writer. And so my purpose has been to write about that and about various trips I've made to Iceland, and just to write as much as I can about my Icelandic heritage. So I'm going to read some of those poems, and then I'll read from my chapbook Drive. So I'm going to begin with a poem called The Ladies' Eining. The ladies' eining stand in rows on the church steps. In the photo, my two aunts, somber suited in their Sunday best, smile apple-cheeked and optimistic. No one else is young or cheerful. This is the Icelandic Lutheran Ladies' Society. These are the keepers of God's kingdom on earth. A drab frame church on a chilly corner in Ballard. Grandmother sits stiffly in the front row. Her hands, clothed in Sunday gloves, rest on her thick pocketbook. In the New World, these women worshipped with rag and wax and dreamed of angels as they polished the pulpit, the oak altar, the minister's high chair. On their knees, they waxed the creaking wooden floor, then washed and blessed the altar cloths, bowed and buffed the cross and candelabra, wiped dust devils from under pews, while Jesus, blue-eyed as any son of Eric, smiled like a movie star from his gold frame. These churchgoers brought garden iris, peonies, rose, and lilac, lit candles gleaming in the tall candlesticks. On Sunday, the plain gold cross glowed over the bright bouquets. Pulling gloves over work-hard hands, the Eining ladies sang choruses of old Bach in their New English. The air was thick with alleluias, the smell of floor wax and flowers, the scent of heaven. So this next one is a very recent poem called Hosanna in the Highest. The night before, my mother gathered a lock of my hair, wrapped it round a pink plastic curler, rolled it up tight, her careful ceremony. I could hardly sleep. The Big and Little Dipper poured their magic down on our muddy yard, silvered the sand, the beach where the clams were dug in deep. Our pink and blue baskets waited by the window. Jesus rose again that morning, and I was a miracle of frizzy curls. The Easter baskets brimmed with chocolate eggs. Calvary Lutheran was full of those who had been missing for months. We fidgeted on the hard pews through Pastor Eric's sermon, listened for the organ's first jubilant chords. The choir stood, and we did too, for Handel's Messiah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. The organist pulled out the stops for the strings, the trumpets, the timpani. King of Kings, the soprano's high notes pinged off the ceiling. Forever and ever, promised the tenors. The old building seemed to tilt off its foundation, and everything came together in a sudden rush. The minister's gold cape gleamed, and the altar lilies opened their scented white throats. Now we're actually going to go to Iceland. So this poem is about one of my ancestors and my grandfather. This is called Codfish. She said the codfish was to blame when the infant was born with that thick shock of black hair, foreign among the blonde children of Eric. The codfish, that pale fish that fed the nations. French fishermen followed it to faraway Icelandic waters. I don't know which of my great-grandmothers fell into the arms of a French fisherman, or if she loved him, one found a way to her bed sometime in the late 18th century, I figure. That's how these things happen. I think he was handsome. In the picture, my black-haired grandfather, Peter Ole, sits with his French horn. I inherited his books of poetry and one of the landscapes he painted. I know nothing about that distant grandmother who bore the dark-haired child. She enlivened the gene pool in a country where everyone is related. In Iceland, it's not unusual to bear a child out of marriage. She probably just got up and got going, like the boats that follow the fish. Maybe she looked forward to the next run of cod. Now, this next one is a true story. Also, that's a true story. And this is about a cousin called Gunnar Jonsson, and you'll hear what he did. Became quite famous and wealthy. This is called More Icelandic Than the National Coat of Arms and the Flag, and that was from a headline by Andri Magnusson in the Reykjavik Grapevine, which is a newspaper in Reykjavik. That's the title of my poem. Gunnar Jonsson came back from America in 1962 with a recipe for mayonnaise. That year, Gunnar's mayonnaise became all the rage in Reykjavik. With their mouths full of mayonnaise, the people of Iceland finally experienced bliss. Women spread it thick on their loaves to give to their children what they had always lacked: the oil, the egg, the lemon. At the table, a brauterta, a richly layered sandwich cake of shrimp, egg, and mayo with piped rosettes. Mayo was its magic. They smeared it on sandwiches, on fries, and in their hair. Now Gunnar's is in every refrigerator in Iceland. Had Andy Warhol been Icelandic, he would have painted Gunnar's tubs. If Jeff Koons were Icelandic, he would have sculpted a giant replica of a Gunnar's tub and set it alongside Highway 1. It would have been considered the most precious work of art in Icelandic history. So this is a poem I wrote in April, because in Iceland they keep two calendars. They keep the contemporary Western calendar, and then they also keep the Old Norse calendar. So these two calendars operate side by side, and it's no problem. So it means that in April, summer starts. So I will tell you about that. So I wrote this poem, you'll hear. It's called It's April and the First Day of Summer. Today, April 24th, Sumur dagurinn fyrstur, is the first day of summer in Iceland according to the Old Norse calendar. Today, a band will march down Lagervegur Street, the Icelandic flag flying in front, its blue field, red and white cross fluttering in a chilly wind. There will be parties and gifts to celebrate those who once again have survived winter. The national news will announce that the golden plover, the beloved harbinger of summer, has been sighted at Eiderbakki on the south coast. The birds busy nesting in the heather. They bring with them hope for light and warmer weather. Now the days will lengthen to midsummer, when the sun will not rest, when Icelanders play midnight baseball and golf until 5 in the morning, sleep for a few hours, and start a new day. I remember a dinner and ended at nearly 12. The sun's still shining. Who had any idea of time? Walking home, a couple tending their garden. They wished me gleðileg summer. She blonde and full-breasted in her white bra, white panties, on her knees in the flower garden, digging among the pansies. He in his wide front briefs, mowing the lawn. Okay, now we're going to switch. We're going to leave the Icelanders alone for a while, and I'm going to read from Drive, my chapbook. And these poems are mostly, they're about my family, my quite American family. Well, no, they're not quite American. What should I say? That's not so. They're Icelandic and American and from all over. My father's family is from all over. But I'm good. They're mostly about my father. So I'm going to begin by, it's called Drive. This is called Driving with Daddy. He liked his cars big. He liked them fast. V8 engines, power steering, chrome-loaded Oldsmobiles, Buicks, and Cadillacs. He was always going somewhere else. He was restless like that. Daddy drove us all over God's country. We knew we were in California when we woke to see luminous oranges like myriad small suns clinging to the trees. He flew us through thousands of tiny towns, their names a blur, Red Lodge, Enos, Tombstone, to Indian battlefields, Rosebud, Little Bighorn, Bear Paw, guarded by ghosts, their voices we heard wailing in the wind. Wild horses grazed in the lowlands, startled antelope leapt, white tails in the air. When dark-faced buffaloes stared at us, we stared back. We traversed Death Valley in the winter, so cold at night our pea froze solid on the highway. Then the Yellowstone crater with its fissures and fumaroles where the earth's heat leaks out. A golden angel trumpeted on a temple top. When the Cessna crashed and he was gone, we slashed the tires on the Buick to make sure his car stayed in the driveway. My father was a gambler. Every road led to Las Vegas. So this is called the Big Winner. Pit bosses bowed as he passed. Gamblers reached out to touch him for luck. I watched as Dad came to get me from the teen lounge. 2 tall hookers attached to his arms, he dusted off like horseflies. His pockets bulged with chips. He took me with him to the cashier's windows, where he lined them up by value. So many columns, so many rows, exchanged for hundreds of Franklin's faces. Bills he flashed to a fan, then fanned into a stack, some to his boot, some to his wallet. All that money, just like that. We drove into the desert dark, past dazzling neon, white trumpeting fountains, to one of the Strip's ritzy all-night boutiques, where it was 3 o'clock in the morning and always midday. Mom and the kids asleep at the motel. Get your mother something nice, he said. Nothing in Las Vegas was anything like my mother. My dad liked to hunt. He really did like to go hunting, and he would go off, up by Okanagan, and hunt. But he did other really crazy things. Sunday drive with Dad in hunting season. There were 5 of us. I should tell you, there were 5 children. We were all in the back seat of this car. Sunday drive with Daddy in hunting season. Deer season, the Remington lay across Daddy's lap. Mom next to him in the front, the 5 of us kids in the back. We drove the high country on logging roads. He hunted from his '56 Cadillac, the green one with leopard skin upholstery, dual pipes. We climbed the rough dirt track through tall timber. With one hand on the steering wheel, his window rolled down, he scanned the woods for antlers, for any movement in the brush. Shush to silence, lest we spook the game. We huddled low in the back seat. I prayed for the deer hidden in the underbrush. I could only think of the menace of the gun lying there, loaded at the ready. Needless to say, he never shot a deer from the car. Here's another one out of Vegas. Out of Vegas. Oh, no, that's not the one that's not the one that's another one there's another one that's not the one I to read. That's jackpot. Yeah, this one, jackpot. Jackpot. That time, Dad hit a big jackpot. Gamblers bent 3 deep around the table. They pressed in to touch his sleeves. They wanted to catch his luck like a cold. Hookers swarmed him like honeybees, and he was an orange blossom. The room sang with the sound of payoffs from glowing machines. That night, we dined late. He got up early to buy a green Cadillac, the color of money. He sped across the desert, going over 100 when we were pulled over. He got a ticket from a cop looking for big winners, speeding out of town in big cars. I can still see that cop's face, his amber sunglasses glinting in the sun. Okay, I will close with the orange Cessna. This is my dad, the flyer, the orange Cessna. Today we have the sky to ourselves, immense, faultless, and blue. We head over the sound, the islands below us, deep green water lilies. At altitude, he flies airshow maneuvers, barrel rolls, fast like a roller coaster. We rush up one side, upside down, held by our seat belts, then down. Clutching the edge of my seat, heart hammering, dry mouth, I glance at my dad. Flying kindles a light in him. His eyes shine. He's always been turned on by speed, fast cars, racing boats, by the close whisper of death, the way some people love to start fires or balance on a wire strung between buildings. It's part of him, like his black hair and brown eyes. Now he points the nose straight up. We climb a vertical wall of air. The engine coughs and stalls out. The plane hangs for a moment in silence. Then he points the Cessna down in a nosedive. We do this over and over. Dad laughs in the open face of the sky. He doesn't care if I'm frightened. He's not that kind of dad. So,
I'm going to read translations today. Can you hear? Okay. And louder? Does it turn up? Can you, that? Okay. I'm going to read some translations today, and we're going to only read the female poets that I brought because that cuts 5 minutes out. And we're going to start back in the Tang Dynasty with a woman called Xue Tao, one of China's famous female poets, an only daughter and child prodigy, knew all the great Tang Dynasty poets either by literary correspondence or knew them in person. As far as I can tell, in my brief glance back today at her biography, she did not marry, and she had an interesting life, from which about age 40 she had retired. Actually, I think she was more or less living in not seclusion, but like I'm not going to be part of society when she wrote this. So this poem is called. It's actually 4 poems looking at spring. They are a piece, and I'll read them in order. 1. As flowers bloom, we cannot joy together. As flowers fall, we cannot sadden together. I ask, does one yearn most as flowers open or as they wither? 2. I gather grass to tie a heart knot I will send to my soulmate. I have just ceased spring sorrowing when a cuckoo wails again. 3. Wind, flowers, and sun fade. A good day is distant. As long as I don't meet my friend, it's worthless to knot grass. 4. How to endure boughs full of flowers, increasing our yearning. Jade hairpins gleam in the dawn mirror. Does the spring wind know? Her poetry actually spanned a lot of topics, and the last line of this 2-line poem called Frontline Tower is pithy and makes me laugh. And it also sort of indicates what kind of a voice she might have had within her society, hard-earned. This poem is called, I translated it as Frontline Tower. It's actually the name of a specific tower that was located in the city of Chengdu, which was on the border between settled China and the tribes, the nomadic tribes, and at the time. So Frontline Tower, even height with the clouds and birds, 8 windows open to autumn. It dominates all Sichuan. Generals, do not cover the horses of the Qiang. From the top floor, one can see the border. And she is writing a warning, a political statement. She also was really close with the previous governor who had kept peace on this border that was evaporating at the time. So I'm going to skip over the men. They get a lot of attention. We're going to move forward in time, not too far. So we're moving from the Tang Dynasty to the Song Dynasty, and specifically to a woman called Li Qingzhao, who, like Xue Tao, actually lived quite a long life. I think Xue Tao lived to her mid-60s, maybe 70. Li Qingzhao also led a long life. Hers was not during a period of as much peace as Xue Tao during the Tang Dynasty. And so her poems actually show a great deal of change across her lifetime. And these three, the first is was written during her early childhood. She was 16 when she wrote it, very much an adolescent poem. And the title is, the name of the form is Like a Dream. The title is the first line of the poem. So, like a dream, last night it was rainy and windy. Last night it was rainy and windy, and I'm still drunk after heavy sleep. I asked the maid opening the blind if the crabapple by the path is unchanged. Don't you know? Don't you know? There should be green leaves and pink blossoms fallen like snow. The second one I'm going to read is it's called Abridged Magnolia, and the word abridged indicates, although I'm not sure and didn't fully look into this, that it was maybe abstracted from a longer poem. This is the piece that remains. This poem is actually super interesting for a translator because there are two words in here that are very important. And you can, if you translate them one way, they do one thing, and if you translate them another way, they provide a very different window into the society, and the poem works differently. I'll read it first. Abridged Magnolia. I buy a branch of spring desire from a shouldered yoke. Washed by tears, it wears rosy dew of dawn mist. I fear my lord will speculate my slave face is not as beautiful as the flowers. I pin blossoms aslant in my black hair, thus my lord cannot compare us. So a little context, the yoke might not be too easy to picture, but it would have just been a carrying device with buckets of flowers on both sides. And then the words that are interesting as to consider how to translate are the word lord and the word slave. Lord is just the word jun. If any of you speak Chinese, you would have already guessed that. And it literally means lord, but it also was used to say husband, lover, but neither of those words in English, husband slightly has a caretaking aspect to it, carry the connotation of power that lord does. And likewise, slave's face would be very easy to translate as my own face, like the speaker's face, but it doesn't give that sense of power and abasement. And so it's a very interesting poem to consider. Just those two little words are super interesting to consider. The next poem I want to read is also by her. It is also a poem that has a form. All of these poems would have rhyme. Every once in a while I try to get it. Mostly it's very hard because Chinese is a very condensed language. So a lot of these poems, each line would only have 10 words. Each word would only be a single syllable. There would be probably end rhyme, internal rhyme, and a form. And this poem that I'm going to read is written in the form with the gorgeous name of A Cut Plum. And so this poem is A Cut Plum. The red lotus scent has faded. The scent of red lotus has faded, and the jade mat holds autumn's coolness. Gently I loosen my silk robe. Alone, I get into a small boat. Within clouds, who sends love letters? The geese return, and the moon lights the east building. By themselves, flowers drift and water flows. One species of longing, two sights of idle sorrow. There's no getting rid of this feeling. After sorrow has left my face, it lies upon my heart. Yeah, she's pretty incredible. And she experienced basically being a refugee, like a better off refugee than a lot of refugees. But after the fall of the Song dynasty, her husband and I think both of their families were implicated in political things, and they had to flee to their hometowns. And actually, that wasn't the worst of it. The worst of it was later, when she really was extremely poor. She outlived her husband by about 30 years. And they had a super happy marriage. They were, she was his editor, he worked with her. They had a great deal of mutual respect for each other. It was very interesting. She also had a crazy second remarriage to a guy who was fully corrupt, and she turned him into the government, and she petitioned him for divorce, and she did get a divorce, but at that time, if women petitioned for divorce, they got to go to jail. So he went to jail too for being corrupt. She got to go to jail, but she only went to jail for 9 days because she was this very well-known literary figure. So speaking of crazy marriages, I picked out one contemporary poet because I was thinking about, I wanted to bring in a contemporary poet, and this poet I think is an excellent poet who isn't read so much. She was married to somebody extremely famous as a poet. He continues to be influential and famous. They were both part of a school called the Misty Poets, and he murdered her, and then he committed suicide. And so she was, I think, around 30 something, and there isn't that much of her work, but it's very good. And rather than read his stuff, let's read hers. Her name was Shia, and there's actually something very interesting and disturbing within this poem when you think of what was going on in her life and probably the extremely abusive relationship she was living through. And it seemed like a good poem to pull out today. It's titled Wind. And diaphanous but fierce noise comes from the remote wilderness. Wheat fields thrash as huddled low smokestacks emit the sound of clarinets. In the breath of earth and ocean, alarmed and bewildered doves fly out from the protective pond reeds, together with those roofs piled on each other. Dust covers the roads, covers the dry leaves of the daughter. From within a flowing dream, I wake and open my terrified yet longing eyes. You are like a gust of charging wind, encircling me, taking me away, kissing me. The colorful balloon floats unmoored. I don't have strength. I don't want to retreat. Within a vast expanse of spotless trees muttering in a forest, another world's doves are making silvery calls. Rain. On the frenzied leaves are walking the winding streaks of tears. I beg you, do not use your hand to cover your eyes or the sky. I want to see how those colored balloons fly away, how they go into the wind, having that dangerous, beautiful dream.
So we're in November, and it's bitter. So this is an August poem. Dog days. August, and the dogs really do inhabit these juiceless days. Panting chest and chin, meeting the dry, brittle grass, and the very air yellow with heat and heat's weight. Poppies glow red at the edge of the ditch, unfold in a day and drop their red tongues, by evening just stalk and stamen, I think of running. I sit still. Sirius comes closer to the sun, and the sun grows white hot. Hauled on a leash from Orion's belt, the dog star stands and growls, and the earth floods and shudders and cracks as August's heat steals the rivers dry. By 10 in the morning, I'm sticky with sweat, folded into memory. I sit cross-legged, back pressed to asbestos shingles. It is the hour of the flies, that slant of summer sun when they gather on the patio to bathe in heat, their eyes tiny globes iridescent in the shadows. In the upstairs attic, a telescope unassembled in its box sits waiting for ambition to outrun torpor. It seemed like such a good idea in the back of the catalog. Sputnik was circling, and we had to keep up with the Russians. I was going to shape a mirror with carborundum and polish it with rouge. I was going to mix pine pitch and beeswax and love that mirror like Galileo until it reflected back every star and orbit of dust in such fine-grained detail it would make a believer out of anyone. I am 12. I am unworthy of the constellations, and none have arranged themselves in my name. The patio bubbles and peels, and each summer the red chalk dust settles in my sweat until my bare legs turn pink. I lean back. Listen as an apple falls. The attic grows stuffy and warm, and flies drone and come to rest. 2 summers later, backstage, drenched in paisley, I sit knee to knee with a man wearing mirrors on his eyes. He rolls a dollar bill, asks me if I want to see something celestial. His black bolero is ringed with bells and jingles as its shadow spills across my lap. Pixie dust, he says. I shake my head and watch 2 of me, blue-green and violet and small and far away, say no, as he spills white powder onto the shining lacquer of his guitar. Sirius is larger than the sun, but farther away. It just looks smaller, no bigger than a bell on a dog's collar. 8 light years from the sun, yet measuring in the photo only half an inch away. The instructions in the manual warn, ghost stars appear in the optical path of glass poorly shaped. The path from sphere to parabola must be perfect, or the eyes sees double, 2 moons, 2 suns. Child and the one who looks backward hand in hand, yoked in perpetual orbit. Twist the lens and years compress, magnify, and recede. Beneath the slowly wheeling constellations, the dog himself, the retriever lying in the field at the foot of a ditch filled with poppies gone to seed, dreams on.
Funny enough, I was going to read another poem, but I actually wrote something right before I came, so this is just kind of on a whim. And I dedicate this to Hecate. It's called The Dark Feminine. How come ye be the darkest of rain, with or without the heart's bruised ache within? For pain no matter becomes arrogance, unyielding, unflinching. She calls through the night with desperation and guile, evening the score through the trial. What do ye sacrifice to remain? What do ye relinquish in order to refrain? Heart-stricken, wild and unchanging. Come here, child, and let's begin again. Thanks.
This one it might ring a bell somehow. Jennifer's walkie. 'Twas Troche and the Anapest did dactyl gaily in the wood. The sonnet stands the meter's best, and couplets romped in blicitude. Beware the metaphor, my girl, the antonym that leers, the synonym that nabs. Beware the pirate foot and fear, that assonance that lurks and grabs. She took her edit blade in toot de sweet, and languished she by the I am tree. For months the simile she did seek, and eyed the assurance 1, 2, 3. And in her righteous ire she seethed, a platitude with fins and flames, came grunting through the metric weeds, and gurgled as it came. She took her saber, slashed it dead, that vile cliche straight through the heart. She ripped its babble bleeding red and scattered every stupid part. She picked the ballads off a boa tree and perched herself near a syllabub tree. She sang to the moon, halloo-a-doo-dub, I murdered a loathsome trite homily. She left for the night with a villanelle friend, and none could say what she did at the night end. 'Twas Troche and the Anapes did dactyl gaily in the wood. The sonnets danced the meter's best, and couplets romped in blicitude. I have time. Okay. Just.
You see where the boar goes. Ladder and gimble in the wave.
Yeah. I think I've read this before, but I want to close on a kind of a fun note. For 8 years, I was a Georgia and South Carolina artist in residence in many schools throughout both states. I spent a lot of time on the road, driving and thinking. The day the animals returned, outside of Johnson City, I noticed clusters of deer on the median and snakes, copperheads, rattlesnakes, undulating east, 3 rows abreast, all the way to Batesburg. When I arrived at the high school, 4 or 5 bears were hunched on the roofs of cars. I tripped over alligators in the stairwell. Possums hung in clumps along the railings. Classes were impossible. Students could barely move for all the foxes. Foxtails across the drawing paper, fox tracks, dabbling paint. I taught a lesson in analogous orange, burnt sienna, Van Dyke brown, and scarlet. Students painted thin white lines on the colors like pointed teeth. Tonight, I'm stranded in a cheap hotel. Badgers march on the freeways and starlings jam the phones. My room is filled with egrets and moles convene in my mattress. The TV news repeats the scene of raccoons clad in green fatigues, halting cars at checkpoints. Tomorrow, I'll drive the back roads home.
So I was just planning on reading just one poem, maybe a scandalous one. It's based on a true story. This is actually an ode to a beautiful person. And I want you to see if you can guess who it is. Speak up. How about I move to this a little bit? Is that better? Yeah? No? Now I'm getting feedback. Let's try it like this. Is that okay? Yeah? Okay. All right. Pinup girl. I'd only just met her older husband, former flyboy with an unfailing smile, starched white collar, and a sturdy handshake. But I'll admit, I envied what he had. I was now in a room with her, his wife, gazing at me. She spoke of him not once. In my line of work, attachment's taboo. Yet I couldn't shake the husband's stories from my mind, soaring over bitter skies to return at last to a pinup girl. Even once I had pulled the curtains closed, I continued to see her through his eyes. Her hair draped across the pillow in curls, and bare, slender legs showed below her hem. I considered her closely, up and down, from high cheekbones and freshly painted lips, to gentle arms, slim waistline, curving hips, and soft back exposed by a plunging gown. She shivered as I touched along her throat and then across her chest. I had to touch her whole body, along her spine, across her belly, down her legs to her pink toes. With time, her moaning was all I could hear. I continued, of course, not just because I was getting paid, but because it was what her husband had asked for as he watched there. I paused a moment to assess the scene. In the feverish silence, the husband asks, "What's wrong?" Apparently, the pilot part of him could not fully cede command. My eyes returned to the hospital bed, her blank, aimless stare, wrinkled skin, white hair. My mind flicked through a slideshow of fading, monochrome photos taken worlds away. I imagined his pride having painted her on the side of the bomber he flew in World War II. She, his high school sweetheart, his bride, his always, did not know his name. She's had a stroke, and her long-standing dementia has been exacerbated by a urinary tract infection, was my sterile and clinical reply. The bouquet in his hands was round and bright. He wore his Sunday best on a Tuesday. Thank you.
The bear. The bear lives at our house. In the still dark room, about to raise the blinds, I hear its breath. Felt it surround me like a steam, occupying voids where the furniture wasn't. An enormous lumbering entity, waiting, present, assuming prominence. Filling the chamber, lying where it chose. The bears I've seen in nature include one in the high meadow of Whistler from the chairlift, the many at Mount Rainier National Park, the closest, a mama with cubs springing across the trail in front of us, almost near enough for us to stretch our arms out to touch their rough fur. Her babies tumbling down the treed slope, except one who stopped to turn and study us for a bit while mama and the others trundled on. And another mama that forced our early return when we planned to hike to Summerland. And the field camp bear. That last night before we all went home from 6 weeks learning to make geological maps in Montana. We'd handed in our final projects, probably packed our bags. 5 of us, 6, decided to walk up the moonlit dirt road behind the Quonset huts further into the mountains. The bear ran out from the wood, across a meadow toward us, ran fast and with smoothness. The movement resembled the sine curve dolphins draw, up and down, always forward. The bear using the meadow grasses as if an ocean, plunging out of and into, out of and into. A running bear displays a powerful rhythm. It undulated, a black liquid shape, speedy and silent in our direction. Impressed by its flowing crests and troughs, more than frightened, we watched, stock still. But then she wasn't running and left. About her slower departure, I remember nothing except that we didn't have to figure out whether to huddle or sprint. Before the camp bear, I suppose I'd seen bears at zoos, on TV nature programs, illustrations in books. The field camp bear was the first in the outdoors, no barriers between us. A different bear, this house bear, indoors. Like all bears, it speaks no English. Its language is manifestation. It dwells in closets, rooms unvisited by day, like a predator skulking in the shrubbery. The other night, it charged into the living room on its hind legs, roared.
So there's this dance I've been a part of for 18 years called ecstatic dance. And it's a dance, it's free-form dance, and it's very free-form. You can do whatever you want. And one of our members ended up dying one night after dance, which is what he'd always wanted to do. So this is a poem I wrote for him. It's called After Dance, in memory of Ron Ellison, a gentle giant. We hope it was a peaceful passing, like the sweet weariness you felt after dance, the good tired from time spent with chosen family, every woman a beloved muse, every man a fierce brother. You would sway back and forth, arms out as if hugging the air that kept us all alive. You moved slowly, gently, with ease, for dragons do not move quickly and have to mind their wings. The love in you grew, but sometimes love is too big for the heart. No one will ever know your last thoughts or the length of your last breath. But we knew you came to love that place inside where a dragon breathed fire, where all your shattered parts sparkled on the dance floor of belonging. This one is about a nearby retreat center, a Buddhist retreat center, after a week of meditating. After traveling through thick fog and winding roads, she finally arrives. The leaves of trees fill the sky above, bright green clouds of spring and knowing. Every year she returns to where the Buddha and Kuan Yin speak to her of other ways. She adds her offerings to their statues, gems, tiny prayer beads, and flowers. The copper bell rings 3 times through the forest, a call to prayer. She stands still, bathed in its vibration, returning to the body she has forgotten in her other life. She walks to the meditation hall, slips out of muddy shoes and a coat drenched with rain. She steps in with a bow. She and her companions take their seats. The square cushions are rafts that will take them where they need to go. At the front of the hall, the Buddha dares them to be bold and embrace their breath. It's a monumental task. They resist as if drowning, struggling in turbulent waters of thought, until they, like Odysseus, are strapped to the mast of their ship, enduring the siren calls from the rocks below. Should have, if only. Why didn't I? Finally, after days in the storm, they find their way home, falling into quiet, dissolving like mist in the sunlight.
Greetings, family, C&P family. I have just one poem I want to read, but I've got a couple things I want to say about it. Some of you know I taught college English here at South Seattle College for 30 years. I know how to write pretty well, but I don't know anything about being a writer, so I'm just learning that. I have 6 self-published books. Now I wanted to go to a publisher, and so I got this book published. I have a brand new book out. I have a brand new website, michaelghickey.com. I have a book launch date, December 13th. I'll have more information about that when we meet here on December 10th. And so this is the title poem from this book, which is called Orgy at the Chinchilla Ranch. Typically people laugh at that, but thank you. I am selling copies. I have 13 original art pieces in here, so that's why it's so expensive. So it's $25, but I'm selling it for $20 tonight. Okay. This is called Her Hair. My wife slinks in the house and with a vein-sized crack in her timber asks, "So, what do you think?" Matrimonied for 11 years, I have learned the finer points of this intersection the hard way, to look for signs of softness in her eyes, like a reluctant peacock eyeballing a peahen, uncertain whether to spread the full deck of his plumage. She is on the cliff face of tears. This much is obvious. Perhaps she has been crying. My wife takes her hair very seriously. I have years of trial and error scars to prove it, and that she has been weeping is not altogether unfathomable, as her hair resembles an orgy at a chinchilla ranch. "Sit down, honey," I say, with the sincerity of someone about to fleece you at the poker table. I circle around her buzzard-like 360-degree loops of animal husbandry. "Phenomenal," I whisper, replete with reptile smile. "Phenomenal. It accentuates your cheekbones, but it's so rad, it's so chic. You have the perfect bone structure and facial features to pull it off, baby." And I sell it like P.T. Barnum coaxing a one-armed lion tamer back into the ring. Then, careful not to overdo it, careful not to become the scapegoat of this follicle assault, I go back to watching the basketball game on TV, having rediscovered all the tenuous magic in my wife's hair and all the other secrets hidden up there. Thank you.
Hi.
And next is...
I'm Shannon Kringen. I wrote something new, 57 Painted Corner. It's called 57 Painted in a Corner, Better Than Calling the Coroner, Squeezing Blood from Stone, Longing for Home, Dance music video with a drone, Diego, San Diego, Diego, Shan Diego. Eucalyptus sent the wind, eucalyptus sent me back. Tecolote Canyon, Shannon be plannin'. Workhorse, divorced from tradition course. Heart left dormant, feel like a doormat, like an angry hornet. Enact, exact, vulnerable Viking, hug the cactus. Hibiscus, bird of paradise, guide me beyond thighs. Got that Roth IRA, dividends not to spend. Rack up compound interest, ascend the scent. Feeling single even when not, tied in a knot. Guard down rarely. Mushrooms told me she never relaxes. These are facts. Clear the volcano ash, erupting green, enchanted figures filter rain. Escape to La Jolla Cove. See the sea lions, they ain't lying. That's it. Thank you. And the next.
Back on January 17, 1995, there was a terrible earthquake in Kobe and leveled most of the town. And during that weekend, I wrote some 50 Kobe haiku, and I sent a selection of them to an Osaka newspaper. And that's where they were published, 10 of them. And now I got a chance to return to my original work, and I've worked on them some, and I think I'm ready to ship the whole thing to Japan and see what happens. So I'd like to share them with you tonight, some of them. The quakes of Kobe shook the night, a neighbor's house on fire. Rocco Mountains, invisible Kobe, fogged by smoke. The curtain came down, the theater's one-act tragedy. Bell destroyed by the quake, the waters of the Golden Pond flooding Kobe. Golden Pond, there is a beautiful fairy tale about the Golden Pond and the waters of that pond rising to destroy the village if the bell is not rung every day. Too far to Nara, beyond help and prayer, the ancient Ikuta shrine. Nishinomiya tiles, blue roof of death, covering collapsed houses. That was the old town, and the blue tiles were very heavy. And when they collapsed, they killed everybody underneath. This is where the real carnage took place. People from Osaka point at the smoke and say, Kobe. The wife holding a vigil, her husband's body in a blanket, they last night together. In the rubble, Kazumichi Kawabata searching for his driver's license, hearing the voice of his daughter. Two doves, a couple sitting on a bench, silently repeating old prayers. A stretch of highway lying on its side, Leviathan on the beach. On a street corner, old women with a teapot, the fragrance of chrysanthemum. Cat on a fence, waiting for the ground to stop shaking. Long queues of people waiting at the store, shattered shelves. City rubble, tears of new baby born, tears of a newborn baby, salt in the wound. Thank you very much. And the next...
I've got a few short poems to read. This is from an interesting chapbook that has been released by a guy by the name of Griffith Williams from Seattle. And Griffith is a great guy. He did all of this book, each letter hand put on the printing press, a 1900 printing press. And we've been on a kind of a tour of the Seattle area. We have one more reading tomorrow night at Third Place Books in Seward Park. This is called Distance. There are holes in my socks, holes in my soul, as I keep running to and from the invisibility of tomorrow, as summer tumbles into winter, crossing over the autumn bridge, delightfully decorated with indelible dreams and delicious delights. The distance between here and now and then can be measured in smiles and sighs, staring down the eyes of time as I slow dance to imaginary music heard only in my heart. The second one is, I wrote about a week and a half ago about a fellow poet from Southern California. We're involved in a community called Apocalypse. Mike is a part of that. And she passed away, and this is a tribute to her. It's called The Death of Another. Whether family or friend, death rattles the cage, often shaking us to the core. Even when expected, the shock is palpable. As the finish line is crossed and a loving soul takes flight into the unlimited sky above, going who knows where, who knows why. Linda's voice has been silenced. Oh, but her words, poetic and pure, will carry her memory forward. For unlike our ravaged bodies, words live on in posts and pages and thoughts and hurting hearts over the river of time, in a loving legacy of a life well lived, a woman well loved. And I will close, since it is November and Thanksgiving is coming up. This is called Thanksgiving and the Hourglass. I sit alongside my ever-present hourglass as the grains of time slip slowly to the pedestal, oblivious to the time of day. There are far more grains at the bottom of the glass as the zenith runs thin and the currency of time slowly dissipates. Thanksgiving offers a marvelous milepost, a reckoning of blessings, considerable and diminutive, as life takes a deep breath as we lovingly look around. Relationships are the treasure. Love is the magical gift, as Thanksgiving binds us all together with gratitude and grace on a bridge built with memories. Despite deaths and tragedy, which hurts our tired hearts, today we celebrate a world filled with blessings, ruminations, reflections, genuflections towards the powers of love. This year, be someone's Thanksgiving. Embrace the day, the moment, the time. Celebrate with love and laughter, for now is all that really matters. A true and special Thanksgiving. Thank you.